Hey everyone, well we are wrapping things up here at the Rhode Island Author Expo. My final interview for this event is with Maggie Kozel for her new book, My Legs Are Crying. And just to start things off, that's a great name for a book. I'm kind of curious as to where this one came from.
Well, it came from the nature of the illnesses that I write
Okay.
about in the book.
Okay.
But actually, I thought about it. It came to me while I was walking my dog one day. That's
It's
where
always
it
like
was.
the most like random places,
Yes,
right?
yeah, but it refers to the fact that these kids that I've written the book about, these types of disorders that affect children and teenagers, they're really started in the emotional brain, and they're sending really misfiring signals out to the body, saying that your legs hurt or your stomach hurts, and so the child or the teen is actually experiencing pain there because their emotional brain is overriding their thinking brain and is telling them your legs hurt.
Wow. Reading like about your book and what's about, I had never heard of emotional-based illnesses. Tell me like a little more about them, how they happen.
Yes, and join the club, because the reason I became so passionate about this is because I was a pediatrician in regular primary care practice for 3 decades, and saw lots of school-related anxiety, the Monday morning tummy aches kind of thing. And I'd never heard of any of this.
Sure.
And then I took a position as the medical director of the inpatient med psych unit at Hasbro Children's Hospital, where they deal with these kinds of illnesses. And what I found there just sort of astounded me, that the neuroscience, the current neuroscience, clearly shows that these kids are not faking, they're not making things up, they're not manipulating the adults around them, they are experiencing the symptoms that they say they are experiencing, even though there's no observable reason for them to be having the symptoms. So what my reaction to that as a pediatrician who had been treating school-related anxiety for 3 decades was, how did I not know this? How did I never hear this? Because I saw so many kids with the headaches, the stomach aches that kept them out of school. And I thought they were good kids. I wasn't judging them, but I also didn't think they were really having those symptoms.
Right, because like you always assume, oh, like a little Tommy just wants to like get out of his math class or something.
Right. Like it's manipulative. And kids actually aren't as manipulative as you might think around these kind of symptoms. And so I felt regret that I had practiced so many years under the impression that these kids really were sort of making up these symptoms, not because they're bad kids, but because they were terrified of going to school.
Exactly, yeah.
So it was like
kids being kids.
Right, so they were looking for an excuse, but that is not the case. They are experiencing the symptoms, and what struck me was that all this information is that's come out of neuroscience in the last couple of decades, and that psychiatrists and psychologists are well aware of, wasn't making it out to the community, wasn't making it out to the pediatricians, to the teachers, to parents, and so it's all there on Thurber's curve, and not making it out to the rest of us. So that's where I became passionate about getting the word out, and not only to pediatric providers, but to teachers, educators, and to the parents who would keep bringing their kids into the office saying, she's not a liar, she's a great kid, but she's got this belly pain, and now we know what to do. It makes all the difference in the world.
So all those times I told my mom I was too sick to go to school, I was actually really sick.
Well, it depends.
Or I was lying.
Or were you in high school? Because that could be a little different.
So these kinds of illnesses are more for like little kids?
No, I shouldn't have. No, that might have been a poor choice of words.
Gotcha.
But I think as the closer you get to an adult brain, the more you are likely to come up with some factitious symptom. But the kids that we saw, and again, this applies to young children, it applies to teenagers as well. That was a different different thing. It was unconscious. They would tell you they love school. They're good kids, and but everybody around them is saying, well, there's really nothing wrong with your study.
This is fascinating.
It is fascinating.
It really is. So when you started getting the word out, this sounds like a real a game changer for medicine.
It really is. It's a game changer for people of all professions in the community that deal with children and teens. And in fact, one of my former colleagues, a psychiatrist from that same program, is working with me so we're going to be a tag team as pediatrician and psychiatrist to help get the word out.
So cool.
Thank you.
So what made you want to write a book about this? What was sort of the goal here?
So it was interesting. Again, it was because I was stunned.
Sure.
That I didn't know this at a time in my career when I really needed it, and nor did any of my colleagues, as far as I was aware. I just felt really passionate about getting it out, and also because if you don't address these kind of symptoms when they're small, they can become extremely hard to treat. It can go on for years, become chronic, and there's no need for that. We
Sure.
have the information.
How to treat a condition like this?
So it's multifaceted. It takes a strong integration between pediatrics and behavioral health.
Okay.
And we all have to be talking to each other and staying on the same page. The loss of function in children is usually not going to school. That's like
Okay.
their main job, and that's usually what they are unable to do in these situations. So one of the things is the basic fundamental principle is still to restore function, meaning get them back in school. But you really have to get a lot of parental buy-in for that too. But then in addition, and this is what is really the game changer,
Okay.
you need to be able to look that kid in the eye and say, I know you're in pain. I know you are not a liar. But what I need you to know is that this is your emotional brain tricking you into thinking there's something very wrong in your body. And so we're going to give you that power back over your emotional brain so that you can get back to school and deal with whatever your worries are in a much more direct way, not feel your emotions through your body.
Now you mentioned that if this is untreated, it can become chronic. How bad are we talking about? Are we talking about like neurological damage?
So what we're talking about, the kids that we saw at Hasbro were very, very ill. Some of them had been, say, in wheelchairs for a year and not been in school for 2 years, and no medical explanation for it at all. And it just gone from specialist to specialist to specialist. So it can get very severe. But if we're talking about the third grader who just wants to be perfect in school, and she's afraid that she can't be, and so every Monday morning she gets this tummy ache, maybe she's even throwing up. That is so treatable, especially once you get the parents on board. Once you say, your daughter's really going to be all right, we just have to do these things. And you tell the child, I believe you, I believe you're not lying. Then it is such a treatable disorder at that age, and that's where we have to go.
I'm curious, when you first started telling the rest of the medical community about this, what was the response? Were they like, oh wow, this explains everything, or oh sure?
Well, so my first experience would be when we'd have these patients come to the unit,
Sure.
and they'd come in dire straits, and they'd walk out, and they're, with their parents, and skipping their walk, and it was such a huge difference. And I would have to call back. I'd have to call back the referring pediatrician because these kids came from all over the country. And so I'd have to call back the pediatricians, and the first things I'd hear would be like, oh boy, that kid just had her parents wrapped around her fingers, and da da da. And I couldn't get too judgy about it because that's where my mindset was before I ever experienced this integrated med-psych care. And so I would try to gently move that mindset a little bit. But there again, I knew these pediatricians wanted to do the very best job they could.
Of course, yeah.
And I was in exactly their same situation. And I think, again, between myself and the psychiatrist that I worked with, we just became so passionate about let's get this message out to the frontline people.
Yeah.
And it could have a huge difference, especially now that we know pediatric mental health is just so painful, so widespread. We really want to have the best possible skills at our disposal.
Has this gotten worse in recent years? Because I feel like with kids, all the stress they're under and the peer pressure.
So I think school-related anxiety has definitely gotten worse.
Yeah.
I don't know, as far as the kids who became so severely ill that they ended up in our inpatient unit, I don't know. I honestly don't know if that is getting worse. I would suspect that it has, just because there's so many things that are scaring the heck out of young people right now, and I'm suspecting that it has gotten worse, but I've got no numbers.
Fair enough. So, along with having this new book out, you also have a panel here at the Expo called Listening to Your Hearts, Lungs, and Stories.
Yes.
What's it about?
Oh, okay. So it's not about the book.
That would be a little bit self-serving, I
I was
think.
trying to think, could I just show a picture or something?
Here's the book. Buy it. The end.
But no, this is more about the writing process from my standpoint, and I'm kind of tag teaming with the woman who I first met as my writing instructor at Brown, Lauren Surratt. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about how I figured out as an adult learner how to write, because I had no idea how to do it. And she's going to talk about from her perspective how you sort of, I don't want to say teach somebody how to write. I don't think she would use that language, but how you help somebody develop the skills that they're going to need to write a story.
What made you want to write in the first place?
Ooh, that's it.
I know, right? How much time we got here? Okay, cool.
So after I had been in pediatrics for about 3 decades, I, like many of my colleagues, was really burning out. And I think that was the absolute low point of healthcare payments and not being able to see poor kids or just eating the costs. And we were all burning out. And so I took a break, I took a hiatus, and I decided I was going to write a commentary. And I did, and I had a whole lot of success at it. And I mean, much more than I expected, a whole lot for me. Yeah, I guess that's a relative thing.
They actually read it? Oh my God.
Exactly. Like, why are you printing this? Don't you have anything better to print? No, I was much more successful than I thought I would be. It felt really important. I got involved in activism for healthcare reform, and then I finally thought, you know what, I'm going to put this all down in a book. So that was my first book. And I also thought it was my last book until
then boom,
until
you get this one.
I came across this experience.
Is this book more for the medical community, or is it also for parents too?
I think that for us to have any impact, it has to be a combined effort of pediatric providers, educators, including educators who make policy, and parents who are dealing with these kind of issues at home. I believe it's accessible to all those groups.
So what is next for you?
What is next for me?
Another book, perhaps?
I don't know. I was absolutely 100% sure after my first book that was my only book. and now I'm saying, I'm not going to do this again. But I don't know. I guess it's. I don't think I'd write another book unless something came long that I felt as passionate about it. I feel like to do this much hard work, you really have to feel it.
Absolutely. Well, Maggie, thank you so much for talking to me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And for the folks at home, you go to MaggieKozelMD.com. It's all there. Get this book, My Legs Are Crying. And definitely get her first book, The Color of Atmosphere, one doctor's journey in and out of medicine. And certainly looking forward to us talking again.
Thank you very much. It's a great conversation.